here early in the morning, heart of South Philly. Let's go see what the people have got to say. I'm ready to roll, baby.
Now listen here, Dutch. The Mets and the Cowboys, they suck.
1, 2, 3, go Birds! Go Birds! Here we go, 3, 2 Birds, Gino Stinks. Go Birds!
Get your water ice and soft pretzels ready because you are now tuned into a 302 Birds podcast experience. Proudly presented by TickPick, Nick's Pizza, El Diablo Burritos, and Klondike Kate's on the heart of Main Street. Let's take it to the show.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Boy, oh boy, do we have a fantastic show for you. A little bit of a teaser in that lower third, but the Sixers are on a playoff run. The Flyers are on a playoff run. So we have two guests for you today. The first one, none other than the Flyers play-by-play announcer himself, Jim Jackson. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Great to be here. How are you guys?
We are fantastic. So, let me just get things started and ask, what, in your view, has been wrong with the Flyers' power play? It's been an issue for, this series. It got a little bit better. It showed its potential in that Pittsburgh Penguins series. But in your view, what's been the disconnect there?
Yeah, the power play for the Flyers has been an issue for a long time. They finished the bottom of the league for the last 5 years. That's a long time. And I'm asked this question probably about as much as any other question about the Flyers. And I always say if I had the answer, I would be more than just their television play-by-play voice. I would be coaching. There is just no real simple answer. The only similarities between the teams that 4 or 5 years ago were finishing at the bottom and the team that are now are the uniforms. The coaches are different, the players are different, and yet there they are, 32nd in power play for the regular season, and now not producing at a very high clip in the playoffs as well. The one thing they are missing is a big shot from the point, which maybe they can rectify in the offseason. But beside that, they have all the elements to be a decent power play. It just hasn't worked. Rick Tocchet has talked about the fact that they had 3 opportunities in Game 2 against Carolina to just make a backdoor pass, and it just got tipped. It was just broken up. Would have been a slam dunk goal on all 3 occasions. And if they'd gotten one more power play goal in Game 2, you know what that means. They would have won Game 2. So it's an issue. There's no question about it. Do I have the answers? No question about it. I do not, because I'm just not that detail oriented in terms of my knowledge of the X's and O's. But the people who have played the game who I talk to about it all say that, it's a combination of things. Their entries aren't good. Their retrievals aren't great. They don't have that shot from the point, as we talked about. Maybe they try to force the extra pass. So there's a lot of things that I've been told could be the issue. But when it's something that's been like this for now almost 5 years, but different players, different coaches, you start to think it's just weird, and that they're due for it to get better. And they certainly are. And it would be great for it to get better starting in Game 3. It would indeed.
Definitely. I'm also joined by Gavin Sweeney. Gavin, what you got for Jim?
Yeah, Mr. Jackson, I know we talked backstage, but it's a real honor to meet you, sir. So thank you for coming on the show, and we really appreciate it. But as you may know, the Toronto Maple Leafs got the first pick in the NHL draft. It was a huge shock to the hockey media and everyone. which means now, how does this work for the Flyers? How does that pick work? Because it's between them and Boston. So do you have any input on, do the Flyers get it? Does Boston get it? Who's the favorite to get that pick in 2027?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I've done a lot of reading on this from league sources, from team sources. I've talked to people in the Flyers organization. There is still not a 100% lead pipe cinch answer to this. Most people are saying the Flyers will most likely get the pick in 2027 unprotected, which means that if Toronto were to have a terrible season next year and fall all the way toward the bottom of the league, the Flyers would have a very high first-round pick. So that is the hope. That is the expectation. But I can't say that I've seen anywhere where it's 100% the case, because I've also seen the possibility where it might be a choice for the Leafs, which team they want to get the pick at 27 and 28, which would seem kind of weird to me. To me, the Flyers made the trade for their 27 pick before the Bruins made their trade for their 28 pick. So the first trade should be the one that goes in 27. That seems pretty obvious to me, but I'm not sure that is the case. I think chances are the Flyers will have that pick and unprotected, but not for sure.
Now, Jim, you know, the last time we talked, this team did not have Porter Martone, and he comes in late in the year and he just goes on this tear. If Michigan State had, I believe, had not gone as far as they had hoped, we wouldn't have had Martone to begin with. But what has Porter Martone meant for this team, not just in this little playoff run that they've had against the Penguins, now against the Hurricanes? What do you think he means going forward for this team?
Well, I mean, he's a young power forward just blossoming. So he is another chip added to it. I don't want to put all this on Porter Martone. He did come back, did come to the team right as Tyson Forster was coming back. And while Tyson's been quiet in the playoffs, he's one of the Flyers' best all-around forwards. So you put those two additions on top of the team that was already playing very well down the stretch, and it just led to the great surge into the playoffs. But Porter's, he's great around the net. He's also got that edge to his game. He can get underneath the skin of opponents. He's also high IQ player. He sees the ice well, but still has to work on things. He's going to continue to grow into that big body of his. He also has to work, I think, a little bit on his skating in terms of his strength in skating and quickness. But he is a very mature kid. I think he understands what he has to work on to get better. And he has the potential to be a number one line top forward, high producing forward for a long time. So you can't have too many of those.
What you got, Gav?
Yeah, love that. I mean, in my opinion, so far, the switch to Denver Barkey becoming a center has worked in the Flyers' favor, in my opinion. And I guess my question is for you, Mr. Jackson. Do you think Danny Briere and Keith Jones go after a number 1C in the summer because of, the Flyers' success, or do you think they stick to the plan where they draft and develop properly and gives Trevor Zegras an extension because he's also played center? How do you think the Flyers' future is going to form?
Yeah, there's a lot of variables when it comes to their center position. One, as you mentioned clearly, is Trevor Zegras. Is he a center or is he a wing? He's going to go back to center, I'm hearing, for Game 3 because of the injury to Noah Cates. You've also got Sean Couturier playing much better than a fourth-line center here down the stretch and into the playoffs. I would argue he's been their best forward in the playoffs. So, he's 33. You're not counting on him long term, but as far as the next year or two, maybe Coots has that in him where he can be more than just a fourth-line center. You also have Denver Barkey now being added to the mix, kind of thrown into it. He's not a big guy. You like to have some size in your centers, but he's extremely smart. He's very gritty. He can skate, and he's shown that he can handle that job. They had him together, with Bump and Martone in Game 2. Almost sad to say for me, that entire line had their ages together, and I'm still older than they are. So that was a very young line. And I think that, in the playoffs that they got exposed a little bit here and there. They ended up on ice for a couple of goals against, but there's so much potential with all three of those players. So, it is going to be interesting. I think the Flyers rebuild, especially given they've made the playoffs and even won a series, is now to the point where you're looking to add to the mix to see how you can finish this product off to make them complete Stanley Cup contenders, which isn't to say they can't go on a run right now. You just never know in the NHL. But the bottom line is they definitely need that number one, no doubt about it, center. And there might be a couple of them becoming available that you will be able to make an offer for because you now have the assets to do that. Obviously, people look at Austin Matthews in Toronto, maybe a year down the road or so. Connor McDavid even is available. So there might be some big-time centers out there. They will, obviously, Danny Briere will be on top of this. He'll do his due diligence, as they say. And I'm sure we'll be in on anything that he thinks is going to help this team. But I would say that, they have Nesbitt coming. They have Berglund coming. They have Jet Lachenko now with the team. They have some young centers. They have to see what they have with them as well. So a lot of variables with the center position for the Flyers. They do know they have to get deeper and better there. That's for sure. How they go about doing that, we shall see.
Now, Jim, one more question before we let you go. I know you've got an incredibly busy day, but our CEO and founder Dalton Holland brings up a good question, and luckily you have you've given me the grace in telling me this story before. But I'd love to get to know. I'd love for the people to get to know your story and how you kind of got to where you are today. With decades of experience as the play-by-play guy for the Philadelphia Flyers.
Well, I got to give you the abridged version, though, because we'd be here all day if I told you the whole thing. But, Jesse, you've taken my broadcast coaching course, and I go through the story mainly to show you what maybe you can avoid in your journey that I didn't avoid. But long story short, I was raised in upstate New York, huge sports fan. Learned early on I wasn't going to be good enough to play sports, so I wanted to be a broadcaster. I grew up near Syracuse, just about an hour away, so that became the obvious thing. Let's try to get into Syracuse. I got into Syracuse. I did everything I could possibly do when I was at school. I graduated. I had nothing. I had absolutely nothing. And for a month or two, I'd wait for Broadcasting Magazine to come. Back in the day, there was no internet, no wireless, nothing, no social media, no way to really look for jobs other than to wait for the publications, the trade publications to come out and then apply through snail mail. And I didn't get much really offered to me. So I finally decided to just walk into a radio station and in my hometown in Utica, New York, and say, hey, can I hang around for a month or so? And, I'll get coffee for the broadcasters. I'll rip wire copy, whatever you want me to do. And they went for it. They said, sure, he's a Syracuse grad. He's local. Let's we'll let him do it. And that's what I did for a month. I basically was a gopher, and I got called into my very first job in professional radio. I got called in to do a Polish radio show, or I couldn't even understand the lady, a lovely lady named Maria Kowalski, but she'd point. I'd play the polka either on cart or on actually vinyl back then. And I'd read some English commercials. And that was my very first gig where I was on the air. And that's why I've been doing the Flyers now for 33 years, because that job eventually led me to get here very quickly. I proposed a weekend talk show for that station because they had top 40 music running. They went for it. They gave me a job, full-time job. I was 12 to 12, noon to midnight on Saturday and Sunday. Social life gone, but I had a job. And about 6 months after that, the sports director left to go to Birmingham, Alabama, and I became the sports director at this station. Now I'm doing a talk show. I'm doing New York Penn League baseball. I'm doing high school football. I'm doing ACHL hockey, Division I basketball. And about 9 months after that, the New Jersey Devils moved their AHL farm team from Portland, Maine to Utica, New York. Our station got the rights, and now I'm doing AHL hockey, one step below the NHL. And I did that for 6 full years, did every single Utica Devils game that was ever played. And then the Devils decided they were going to leave town in 1993. And I was forced to send tapes, and I sent tapes everywhere. I was told by my coach, the final coach for the Devils, Robbie Fatorik, send tapes everywhere. And I fought him on it, saying they end up in the circular file. But one of those tapes that I sent out to everywhere was a tape the Flyers got They made a late move when Doc Emmerich decided to go to New Jersey and do the Devils and do more national work. They moved Gene Hart back to television. The radio job was open, and the tape I had sent, which I would not have sent if I hadn't listened to that coach, was the tape that got me the job I've had for 33 years. I did 2 years of radio. Gene retired. I've been doing the TV for the last 3 decades and enjoying every minute of it. As you know, Jesse, I'm living a dream. And really the lesson from it is what, Jesse? Pursue your dream no matter what anybody else says. You know, got to shoot for your dreams. That's what life's about. You don't want to be 40 years old, which is so far in my rearview mirror, but you don't want to be 40 years old and looking back and saying, why didn't I give that a shot? I really love that. Even if it doesn't work out for you, if you give it a shot, you can't be 40 saying, why didn't I give it a shot? You gave it a shot. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You'll find something else. But if you have a passion and you have something it really makes you tick, you've got to give it a shot. Try to make it your profession, because I think way too many people in this world are at the very least, they're bored with their job, and at the very most, and unfortunately the worst, they hate their job. And there's just too many people going around that aren't happy in their professional lives. You gotta, if you find something you love and you're able to monetize it and do it for a living, it's a real recipe for a happy life. So go for it. Go shoot for your dreams. And as you know, also, you got to persevere through potholes and things. You got to push through some things. I did too. But it's all worth it in the end if you get to where you want.
Absolutely. For Jim, just we try to give our guests every chance they can to promote anything they want. And I know the whole reason that we got connected to begin with is through Jonah Castle. You told me about that name. A good friend of mine, and he did a sports broadcasting workshop with you. We connected. You gave me probably some of the best advice I've ever received. Where can people that want to get into the sports broadcasting business find the stuff to get working with you?
Yeah, JimJacksonBroadcasting.com is my website. There are several links there, but one of them is for broadcast coaching. And it's basically 3 one-hour Zooms. And I usually go over an hour. And also I'll recap clips of yours if you have those. But I go through all the fundamentals of broadcasting, finding your niche in the business, all those things. And then you can consider me your mentor for as long as you want me to. And for those who are available, and I know you're on the waiting list for this, Jesse, because it is pretty popular, but I give a job shadow out for a Flyers broadcast where you can sit in the booth with us and also sit in the truck for a period, and just all kinds of things. And it's been really rewarding. I started it during the pandemic after the Phillies let me go. I had summers off, and I still have my summers off, but I'm doing a lot of those. It doesn't feel like I have them off. And it's fun. It's rewarding. It's great. I have some people now climbing into really good levels in this business, and even the ones who haven't continued on in this business still stay in touch with me and consider them friends. So that's basically what it is. And I'm heading into the off season, hopefully not for a little while, but here pretty soon, and be really doing a lot of sessions. So check it out on the website. And if you're interested, let me know.
Absolutely. Well, seriously, I'm looking forward to that. I cannot wait. But I want to thank you for coming on 302 Birds. And yeah, it's an absolute honor talking to you. I'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Sounds good, guys. Go Flyers.
Go Flyers. All right. That was the legendary Jim Jackson. But I bring in Adam Den because in just a few minutes, we have not one, but 2 special guests, like I mentioned, Gavin. I want to thank you for coming on, my friend. Hopefully that was worth your time. I thought it was worth mine, for sure.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. Thank you for having me on the show, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have a good one, dude.
You too, guys. Have a nice show.
Have a good one. Now, that brings in just a few minutes our second guest, Matt Murphy, who is the pre-post and a interviewer for the Sixers, reporter for the Sixers themselves. So I cannot wait for him to come on in just a few minutes. But Adam, what about that run for the Celtics last night? They're up 2-1. Just before Matt gets here, I'd love to get your thoughts so far on this Sixers series. Oh, you're muted. Oh, wait, you're muted.
Got it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Jess. It was a tough night at Madison Square Garden for Philadelphia. You can kind of see it coming with the absence of Joel Embiid, right, and kind of the uncontrollable variable of that. But at the same time, a really rough night defensively for this squad, despite what was a really encouraging start offensively. For this team, they went 8 of 10 from the corner at the start, was just incredible. Kelly Oubre was bombing, VJ Edgecombe was bombing, and then late, their errors defensively kind of hurt them, and some late game adjustments by New York on defense really, bring them down. So tough loss for Philadelphia. We head back to Xfinity Mobile Arena, hope to get the big fella back, but it's not looking encouraging.
No, it's not. And I will say this team. They're not built like the Boston Celtics. They're not built like a team that can shoot the three. And for a team that was 26% from a 3-point land last night, not exactly the most encouraging thing. Paul George, on the other hand, he looked mighty fine, impressive in that first quarter, and I really thought that he was going to carry this team. But the fourth quarter was what it was. Flyers in 6. Sixers in 7. Not sure about that, KJ, but we'll see. And here goes Chris about the getting rid of Embiid comments. I don't know. I'll tell you what, Adam. I really think after that series against the Boston Celtics, that really saved Daryl Morey's job. I felt like going into this, I felt that he was going to be in the hot seat, and this saved his job. I felt like this saved Nick Nurse's job a little bit, and now it's sort of the clock sort of resets. I feel like.
Yeah, Jess. I mean, you don't want to look towards the offseason till the offseason, right? Because it's only 2-0. There's still a shot, but it really does put things in a different perspective. But I think at the same time, you look back to last night, right? And the reason why this Philadelphia team struggles so much so late in this game is because of the load that is put on Tyrese Maxey and the fact that he looks simply exhausted late in this game. I'm sure that's something we're going to talk to Matt about. Is just, this is a guy who played 40 minutes last night and late in this game was struggling to get off the ball, was struggling to have the same explosiveness downhill, was struggling to create separation against guys like Mikal Bridges and earlier in the game, OG Anunoby. So I think, you think back to that deadline and you think back to Daryl Morey, you think back to the Jeremy McCain trade, you think back to how Nick Nurse was connected to that trade and not playing McCain perhaps, the amount of minutes that would have, been needed in order to justify keeping him on this team. And it's certainly not hard to find the connection.
Yeah, Chris brings up a good point. Maybe, how about this? You should have traded your best sharpshooter on the team. I don't want to say best because he was definitely dealing with injuries.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
He wasn't shooting well at the time, but I mean, look at what he's doing. I mean, just a night ago in Oklahoma City, had a fantastic night against the Lakers, really was a spark for them late in that game as a 3-and-D presence. So,
yeah. But before we get Matt on, wanted to get yours. I mean, you talked about it on the Philly Sports Pulse Instagram. Go follow that. But you talked about that series a little bit against Boston. The fact that they went into Boston Game 7. Yes, I know they didn't have JT. I get that. But Embiid, he's not on this team for the first couple of games. So gutsy win for the Sixers and gutsy series.
Yeah, it's fantastic, Jess. It certainly is something that I think this team, like you've said, and this organization is going to really take with them as they continue throughout the offseason, as you kind of referenced with the Daryl and the Nick Nurse stuff, and a really good win in which they were able to kind of transform themselves into the team we had all hoped for, right? They were so stellar defensively late in that series in a way it's not really working out right now. But both in their ability to guard the Boston Celtics straight up, and in their ability to adjust throughout the series. And then on offense, just the ascension of Tyrese Maxey and the way Joel Embiid played like himself, they were crucial. You hope that that's something that can carry through into Game 3, as I think I said on that when I said that a couple of days ago. This New York Knicks team is a much more difficult matchup than the Boston Celtics because of the size they have on the interior. But I'm certainly excited to see how this plays out going into Game 3.
Well, do you think the Sixers, with these home games coming up, do you think that there's any chance in heck that they can make a run? Maybe not. Maybe make a run is a better way of putting it. But is there a world that this team can come back?
Yeah, I think it's a low chance, Jess, but I would be lying if I didn't think there was some chance. And I think it's very low. I should emphasize that. But I think the X factor really is and continues to be, and I hate to state the obvious, but it's Joel Embiid, and it's his ability to ensure that this offense is in rhythm and not turning the ball over and presenting a physical mismatch on Karl Anthony Towns, in which, when this guy is healthy and his full self, he is one of the most dominant players in basketball. And I think even against a guy with the size of Towns, he can show flashes of that, just like he showed against Neemias Queta, just like he showed against Luke Garza. And so I'm looking for him to step in and be that presence. And, maybe there's a chance they can sneak away with a win in one of these.
Now, in terms of the general NBA, we see the Knicks, we see the Thunder, we see all these teams. Do you see the Knicks making the finals if they beat the Sixers?
Yeah, Jess, I think they certainly have to be the favorites. I don't know how much you've watched of this Pistons-Cavs series so far, or if you watched Game 1 or their previous series, but it was certainly a bloodbath in both. Neither team played up to their expectation. This Pistons team struggles mightily on offense at times because of their over-reliance on Cade Cunningham, and this Cavs team's guards have largely, been inconsistent throughout these playoffs, as has been their defense, with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen either getting in foul trouble or struggling on the boards as true rim protectors. So I think either of those teams would struggle in a match against the New York Knicks, who have really transformed into a different team, and I'm sure we'll talk about that with Matt. But this is a team that's very different from a year ago because it's not as much the Jalen Brunson show anymore. It is the great play of OG Anunoby and his ability to contribute. Mikal Bridges, everybody wants to talk about what he hasn't done offensively, but I would love to talk about what he has done defensively throughout this series and throughout the end of last series. And then Towns, who I think has had his ups and downs throughout this playoffs, but has shown to be a reliable player who can elevate this team. So I think they have to be viewed as the favorites in the East. Absolutely.
Now, in terms of Tyrese Maxey, I felt like he's been, when Embiid hasn't been on the floor, Tyrese has been your X factor. Mm-hmm. And we saw how he was in that fourth quarter, last night or in Game 2. Yeah. Do you think the injuries that he's had is affecting his style of play?
I think that's something we're going to have to ask Matt, just because I think that's what we can see from on television, certainly. But I think it's hard to get a full read on something like that. What I can say is I do think whether or not the injury is hurting him, I think there needs to be a relative in between from what we saw in Game 1 and what we saw in Game 2, right? And actually, I just got a notification. New York Knicks forward OG Anunoby has been diagnosed with a right hamstring strain and will be day to day. So that is also relevant for tomorrow night. Yes. And actually good news for the Knicks, because that means he won't be out for the entirety of the series. That was something that they were worried about last night. But Yeah, back to Maxey. I think you need to find an in between, right? Like he took 10 shots in game 1. That can't happen. And he took 30 last night and had so much load forced upon him. They need to find, a way to get him in a rhythm and get him into actions that's not just throwing the entirety of the load at him. And we'll find out if they're able to.
Yeah, I do want to address this comment by George or Jorge. Sorry, I'm probably butchering your name, but I do think that Paul George is going to remain a Sixer going into next season. We saw after what he's brought to the table post suspension, the dog in him. Now, yes, the later stages of game 2 was not exactly impressive, but to me, Paul George is bound to be a Sixer next season. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, I think it depends what the market looks like, and it also depends how this series ends, right? He has not had a good series. He looked, like you kind of referenced, he looked good through a quarter last night and then got into foul trouble and wasn't really able to be a contributor late. And in game 1, like most everybody on this team was pretty much a non-factor. But in that Celtics series, yeah, we saw flashes of the Paul George that we know and love. And it wouldn't shock me if a team like the Golden State Warriors or let's say the Atlanta Hawks was on the phones, a team in need of some kind of wing scoring presence that can be a ball handler and just give you a little bit of a spark, called the Sixers and said, hey, we'll take on, part of the last 2 years and offer you, a first round pick or an early second just to get off that contract. Probably not even a first, probably a late second or probably a second just to get off that contract. So, and I would take that at $35 million. I think Philadelphia would too.
Yeah. Now another player that I've really had my eye on in game 2 and really in these last couple games, Kelly Oubre.
Mm-hmm.
He's been a monster and a guy that I really have looked at for his career as a Sixer. I really have looked at him as a defensive only type of player, but he's shown some flashes, especially from mid range, from inside the paint, that he can kind of be a spark plug for this offense when need be.
Yeah, he's a good cutter. He had that great first half from beyond early in this game after he struggled a lot in game 1. He's going to have to be better defensively, though, and I think that's going to be huge for this Philadelphia 76ers team. I mean, they have really hunted him with Brunson and look to, try to create off of him to the point where I think, that he kind of played himself off the floor almost at times late in that game. They had to go to Quentin Grimes. So I think he's going to have to be better both in transition and in individual defense with Jalen Brunson. And if he's able to, I think because of what he offers you offensively, like you said, that's going to be a key player for the rest of the series.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, before Matt gets here, what is one question that you think you're going to ask him?
Yeah, well, I don't want to give it away, but I think the biggest question I have, as a whole, and one thing I was hoping to talk to him about was I think there's a lot that's come about of what the Sixers defense looked like late in this game and their center rotation, right? Because they go to Dom Barlow late. And because of the injury to Joel Embiid, they phase out Adembona and Andre Drummond because of their struggles throughout that game. I think a big thing, I was looking to talk to him about and really talk about in general is just how does that look for the rest of this series, especially not knowing Embiid's health. Is that something that the Sixers team is going to go to just, with the switchability of it all?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I'm also interested to see what his thoughts are on this rebounding that the Sixers have been struggling with the last couple of games. They were much better as the game went on in game 7 for sure. But if there's one thing I've noticed, if Andre Drummond isn't rebounding, this team's in trouble. I felt like, and I wonder if he thinks that Paul George can be a threat, I keep coming back to Paul George, but these guys, maybe Embiid comes back, in Game 3. That's that is more of an X factor that I've noticed. But if some of these guys can board better against a admittedly very good defensive team with OG, with Karl Anthony Towns. I know he's been up and down for sure, but I wonder for sure what Matt will think about the Sixers' rebound ability, but also at the same time, like what is he seen from this team, especially if you don't do a whole lot at the deadline, but you still keep the core together and you take Boston to 7 games and you win in Boston down 3-1. That's got to take some guts. That's got to take some grit for sure. And I can't wait to talk to him for sure about that in just a minute or two. So before he comes on, I know we didn't really talk Phils last week, but what have you thought about the Phils lately? They've kind of got it together a little bit with Don Mattingly.
Yeah, I know you're happy, dude. It's been a cool win streak. A lot of NBA playoffs have been going on, so it's been a little hard for me to keep up, but it really does seem like, especially offensively, they've been able to string things together. I know the Alec Boehm struggles are still there, but I mean, and the Trey Turner struggles are still there, but I know Bryson Stott had a pretty good night the other night. Adolis Garcia is playing better. Brandon Marsh is mashing, which is absolutely incredible. And I think it seems like the pitcher luck has gotten better as well too. I mean, I saw a stat this morning that said since April 28th, this has been the best team by advanced stats as far as their starting pitching staff in baseball. So it seems like they're starting to get things together, albeit easier opponents than they had earlier in the season. I'm not gonna freak about the Marlins and the A's, but it's good to see him getting things done.
Definitely. Yeah, so we've got a lot going on. I mean, we haven't really even covered the Eagles a whole bunch, but training camp is right around the corner as well. Are there any big storylines do you think coming out of that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, coming out of camp? I'll flip it to you, Jess. You had any storylines you're looking to?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. Defensively, in this secondary, it's a concern. And Makuba and these linebacking core, it definitely concerns me a little bit. So they're guys that I look for to show up. I've really been an Andrew Makuba. I've been a Makuba truther for a long time, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him prove the doubters wrong. There's a certain guy on this podcast crew that is not that's not us. That is not a Makuba guy, and I'm looking forward to him proving the guys wrong. But I'm really excited to see what the Eagles can get out of Mekhi Lemon. I've been down on him for sure. I actually, you know what? I don't think I got your take on this. Yeah. What was your thoughts on Mekhi Lemon? Well, actually, you know what? Sorry, he got here, ladies and gentlemen. Horrible segue, but I want to introduce to you guys the Sixers, a Sixers broadcaster, pre, post, and reporter, Matt Murphy. Sir, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. We're doing it live. That's awesome. I'm glad to be here. I know we're 2 games into this Knicks series. Obviously, everyone hoped that the Sixers could steal one on the road, but they'll just have to do it a different way than that Celtics series, which was so thrilling in 7 games.
Oh, yeah. Well, Matt, I'll start things off. What has your assessment been? What was your assessment of the team taking Boston to 7 games, down 3-1? You didn't have Embiid for the first couple of games. Then he comes back, and this team they beat one of the best teams in the NBA.
It was amazing. I had the privilege of attending Game 7, working Game 7 rather than being in the studio, being on site for it, and to see the Sixers, the final buzzer sound, and the Sixers beat the Celtics in a playoff series for the first time in 44 years, to see Embiid and Maxey kind of at the center of it all after everything that Sixers fans and the organization has, done and been through with Joel, all these battles, many of which have been with the Celtics. For them to cross the finish line there was amazing to see. And there were a good amount of Sixers fans there too. So shout out to anyone that was in the building at TD Garden for that. The Sixers are going to need the fan support when they come home in this second round series, but the ones that traveled and had the "We Want Boston" chants going at the end of Game 7, it was almost like a soccer game, an international or European soccer game, where a pocket of supporters for a team after the win and towards the closing seconds was leading the chants by the team bench, and Joel and everyone was pumping them up. It was just the culmination of something that's been a long time coming for the Sixers. But it was the first round, and you have another rival in the second round coming, and that quick turnaround, as you could tell in Game 1, really, took a toll. But the first round was a long series, and hopefully the second round's a long series that goes the Sixers' way, obviously, too.
Definitely.
Yeah, Matt. No, getting into, last night and kind of how last night finished. It was a tough way to end what, I think most would largely look at as a pretty fruitful first half from Philadelphia. What were kind of your big takeaways from last night, and how do you think this team moves forward over the home stretch?
They played well, right? And you were hoping that it could be that Boston Game 2 when Joel didn't play, or maybe that Boston Game 5 where you get another one on the road. The takeaways would be, got to clean the turnovers up. And a lot of that is the different looks they were throwing at Maxey, which relates to another negative being the lack of shot making. Because in those Boston wins, particularly 2 and 5, if you're going to win those types of hard-fought playoff games, you've got to hit shots, especially open threes. For the most part, they did that in those games and not in Game 2 at MSG, because when Maxey is getting blitzed with 2 defenders in a pick and roll, it can lead to a turnover, or if it leads to an open shot, you have to make it. Or if he gets the ball up to the screener, making the right play, and they did make the right play on a number of occasions, just didn't get the results that they needed to pull off that win. So I think maybe in conclusion, the process was there on a lot of it, just not the result. And that includes Tyrese, but they were trapping him early, then defending him differently. And then Mike Brown said they went back to blitzing him, trapping him late in the game, and that just negatively affected the Sixers. But they were right there. They had an opportunity, which should give the players confidence going in and should give the Sixers fans confidence going into these home games, because these are huge. I mean, if you win, obviously Friday feels like a must win, Game 3. But if you get them both, it's anybody's game.
Now, that means that, well, I feel like a big X factor in all of this, it has to be Joel Embiid's health. Do you think that this team, if they get Joel Embiid back, there's been this weird sentiment among Sixers fans, I feel like, that the team doesn't play as well with Joel Embiid on the floor. I wholeheartedly disagree with that sentiment. But if Joel Embiid comes back, Game 3, 4, etc., do you think that he'll be able to will this team to a series win over the Knicks?
Yes. I mean, just point people to Game 7 against the Celtics, right? And Games 5, 6, and 7, after he worked his way back in from Game 4 of the Boston series. I should have given him more praise in an earlier answer when reflecting on that monumental series win over the Boston Celtics, for coming back not even 3 weeks removed from the appendectomy. And they've shown they can win in different ways. I mean, they won without him when VJ and Tyrese had that great Game 2. They won with him in that Game 5 I mentioned. And obviously they won 3 in a row to end that series. But what Joel gives me confidence if and when he returns to this Knicks series. They were down in that game 5, his second game of the playoffs. They were down 13 in the third quarter. And I saw a switch flip, that's the phrase, in the team, in Joel. He just went bully ball. He was showing some of the defense that he would then show in game 7, blocking Jaylen Brown. Closeouts were just a touch quicker, a touch better. The rebounding as a team, it was sort of contagious. Even Tyrese Maxey down the stretch of that first round was grabbing every rebound in sight. We know VJ can do it. And Joel was just a little quicker with everything. And I don't think we need to get lost in a debate on play style, because you just need to look at what they did over the last 2 weeks, and you can easily see that rub off on the next 2 weeks. But it's a little different this series. The opponent's a little different, another good, strong opponent. But every game's going to require a little something different. And Nick Nurse has been ready with every adjustment. And unfortunately, facing the personal situation that Nick Nurse had, for him to lead Joel in this group through that while dealing with that personal situation with the passing of his brother Steve. I mean, you can't say enough good things about what they've done and what they're capable of, especially if and when Joel comes back.
Definitely.
Yeah, Matt. I think one of the biggest things that I've found this series, and you kind of talked about offensively, right, the different looks that the Knicks have thrown at them. I think, for the Sixers on defense, the Knicks on offense have really, mixed up the ways and they've looked to attack this team. And, the Sixers struggle in drop coverage against Jalen Brunson in the first game. And then in this second game, the Knicks really take advantage of the center rotation. We see Dom Barlow minutes late, and the Sixers really trying everything, but not really having an answer offensively or defensively. How do you think that carries over into this game 3 in this next series? What adjustments do you think they're going to have to make in order to kind of carry through here?
Credit Jalen Brunson. I thought they were going at Dom Barlow in some of those switches, and it's tough to be on that island against one of the best players in the sport. I thought Barlow had a few offensive highlights. He had a few defensive highlights and a couple plays that, like so many of his teammates, when you lose the game by 6, game 2 of this series, there's a bunch of plays you wish you could have back. And no one's going to stop Brunson. But I think if you can factor out through a whole game, unlike when they opened this round in New York, and so many of those shots were free and threes, if you can do the Tatum Brown tough twos type of thing and really make that your identity. Of course, Brunson hit a couple of those down the stretch, and it was a weird game too. There were so many fouls called. It was physical, but the adjustments might be just, I mean, an adjustment is Joel's looming presence, right? But the physicality, they want physicality up at all times. And if you could factor that out maybe to earlier in the series and earlier in the game, Brunson's not going to make them all. And when it comes to the pick and roll action, a subtle nuance that the Sixers are focused on is trying to miss as many screens as possible. They did that really well in the Celtics series. You can't let them get a clean screen on you. You've got to, it's fight, it's will, it's determination. And they've been really good at that in these playoffs. And can you just get a full 48 minutes of that in a game that's maybe not as it doesn't feature as many whistles?
Yeah.
Now, Matt, do you think the Philly crowd coming back, these next couple games, especially as a guy that sees this team, behind the scenes, do you think that the Sixers will feed off of that sort of energy that comes only from a place like Philly, only like a place like the Xfinity Mobile Arena?
I know Joel has challenged the Philly fans in regard to the Knicks matchup a couple of times now, not just after beating the Celtics, but earlier this season as well. And I think they'll feed off it. I think the Sixers fans will respond. Take Paul George, for example. there were a few plays in these playoffs so far where Paul George hits the deck. Usually, I mean, he comes up with the steal. There was a steal where it led to a maxi three that blew the roof off of Xfinity Mobile Arena. It was Paul George who got it, and you might remember VJ helped him up mid-play in the Celtics series. And there were a couple other times where Paul George and others, for hustle plays, it's a smart Sixers fan base. They know when it's a good basketball play more than any other arena I've been in the NBA. They understand the game. And they understand what's required to win these high leverage games. So I think they feed off that. I think they certainly did in those moments where the players are getting praised for not just making a shot, but doing anything that qualifies as a winning play. So they appreciate the basketball IQ of the Sixers fans. They also have this unwavering confidence and swagger about them that even a 20-year-old like VJ Edgecombe brings to the table somehow in his rookie NBA season, where they're not worried about missing the next shot. So it's the perfect storm, capped off maybe by the fact that it's going to be another full game brickin' for chicken promotion in game 3. So whether Mitchell Robinson comes back or not, the Chick-fil-A in-game promotion that has swung some games in that building, the Sixers Xfinity Mobile Arena before, that's going to be a full game situation. And if a Knicks player misses 2 consecutive free throws at any point, we all know the drill. It's a free 5 count, and it goes up from there. If it happens multiple times, it'll be all 4 quarters. That seems to be something that can actually affect the game and has over the years. And if this one happens, the next one that happens is probably going to send the Sixers over 1 million free Chick-fil-A nuggets for the season. So there's a milestone on the horizon.
Can say I've counted for a couple of those. No, we just got news while we were on here, actually, that OG Anunoby is going to be day-to-day. And I know that was a big storyline coming out of this game. He gets hurt in the middle of it. It was so crucial to not just what they do defensively, but the way they were involving him with actions and with Jalen Brunson. But even day-to-day, there's still a chance that he's not able to go tomorrow night. How do you think that affects things for, I'd say, both sides?
It's huge. I was actually just talking about that with some coworkers. Mm-hmm. He's shooting the ball so well right now, and we know he's a two-way player, but the Knicks, the big concern with the Knicks coming in was the offensive rebounding. And unlike 2 years ago when they had Hartenstein, now, of course, Mitchell Robinson's still great at keeping possessions alive, but so too is OG Anunoby. And he had a dagger-type 3 in Game 2 where it's off of his own efforts, multiple efforts to keep the ball alive for New York. And the way that he's shooting, I mean, it could have a huge impact on this weekend set at home for the Sixers, because obviously you need one game at a time. You need this first one. You would love both. And I don't really know. Of course, day-to-day is what comes out through the media, and I have no inside knowledge of this, but we know hamstrings can be tricky, right? So I would be surprised to see him try to gut through a hamstring injury. It's not something a hamstring strain, it's not something you normally see. So if that is indeed the case and he doesn't play in Game 3 and or Game 4, you have to take advantage for the Sixers, because it's also one less defensive option they have. If Bridges has done a good job against Maxey and Anunoby on Paul George, the matchups are a little bit different, and that favors the Sixers going into Game 3.
Now, Matt, on more of a personal level, you were gracious a few years ago to talk to me about your rise to where you are now with the Sixers. But just talk for a second on how you kind of got to the point that you are, being a pre and post game show host now, being embedded with the team as a reporter. What kind of led you to where you are today?
Well, I've had, great people around me, as everyone would always say, but think just showing up and doing the work, and I approach for my entire career, I've approached every college assignment I ever had like it was Game 7 between the Sixers and the Celtics, which made it easier for me when I was in that moment the other day to do it, because I didn't really change up all that much about how I prepare for a game. But I really appreciate the kind words. It's been a dream come true to work for my hometown team right out of college. This is my 8th season with the Sixers organization. I started by sending a cold email. So how I got here was sending an email with my broadcasting tape from Fordham to the Bluecoats, and they happened. The timing was right. Timing is so often everything in a lot of professions, including sports media and sports broadcasting. But I found a way in, a foot in the door, because they needed someone not only to call the games, but do social media and PR as well. And I've been grateful every day and just trying to run with the opportunity, because as I said, I grew up supporting this team. I vividly remember one of my first Sixers games. My brother was a ball boy for a day. So it was 2003, and the Sixers and the Kings, Chris Webber, Peja Stojakovic Kings against Iverson. And I got to go to the game with my dad as my brother served as a ball boy. And they were chanting MVP for Iverson. And now I work games where they were chanting MVP for Embiid, who won it. And now for Maxey on occasion this season, as he's developed into this multi-time all-star. So it's cliche to say dream come true sometimes, but that does apply to me. And early in my career, my motto was kind of be kind, work hard, try to treat everybody the same way. And like I said at the start, like just approach every game the same way too. So your demeanor and your preparation has to be consistent. And I think good things happen from there. You just don't force it. You just allow everything else to kind of work around you.
Awesome. Well, Matt, before we let you go, we just wanted to ask if there's one guy who you think in these next 2 games in this homestand who's going to need to step up, whose name is not Joel Embiid or Tyrese Maxey. Who do you think it's going to be and why?
Well, you left Paul George on the board for me, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
He does lead the NBA playoffs in 3-pointers with 31 now. So if he can just keep shooting at this 7% clip, that would be a good option. I am intrigued to see potentially more Dominic Barlow. Each game presents a different story, though, and there's not always going to be big man foul trouble and that type of thing. So that's one guy. And in the playoff, there's not a big rotation, obviously, but can you get another game like Quentin Grimes had in Boston Game 5 with 18 points? Because you could see that developing even in Game 4 in Philly last round. Quentin Grimes behind the back passes, a little more under control, but like playing with that confidence that we saw last March when he was having those 40-point games. And you don't need 40, but if you can get 18 from a bench player in any one of these games, that can be enough. So does Grimes have a 4 or 5 3-pointer game in him? And can Paul George keep having 4 or 5 3-pointer games? So I guess the X factor might be Grimes or Barlow off the bench in Game 3.
Awesome.
Oh, I could actually add Oubre to that, because they're a lot of times letting Kelly Oubre shoot, and he's been this season. He was 48% from the left corner and 44% from the right corner. So it's been a little less in the playoffs, but can he find that form and force them to cover him more? Because he's the recipient of so many of these, when Maxey's double teamed, so many of these 3-point attempts. And when Maxey is blitzed, I guess I'll leave you with this. It's like more strategy talk, but when Maxey is blitzed, the Sixers need to get either a 3 or an easy dunk. And it's a lot of times Kelly Oubre either shooting that 3 from the wing or the corner, or him cutting behind the defense and getting what is an easy dunk. It should be an easy result. And they had that process there, just not the result to get a win yet against the Knicks.
Definitely. Well, Matt, before we let you go, we try to give our guests the opportunity to promote some of their stuff. I feel like I know where you're going to point at, but where can the fans find some of your stuff.
Well, what do you think I'm going to say? Is it the radio show, the pregame, or?
I don't know. You tell us.
You know what? I will. And I talked about this, but if you search like Nick Nurse, Iowa or anything, this was 2 years ago when I went on that Iowa trip. I'm really proud of that story. And his brother who passed unexpectedly is quoted in that story. So it's a little different than my game coverage, which every game on the radio, you can hear me 10 minutes before the listed tip-off time. It's awesome to work with Tom McGinnis every game and to hear Tom, his electric calls. He had so many like New York centric ones throughout the season for VJ, and to hear that as this series goes along will be great. And you can hear us there pre, half, and post for me. But if you search Nick Nurse, Iowa, I'm proud of that story I did 2 years ago. And I got to know Nick Nurse's brother, Steve, during that trip. And people who knew him well talk about his kindness. And I'll just offer a small example of that. He made sure that like he put me in his golf group because I was an outsider and I was having dinner by myself. And then all of a sudden Steve Nurse came over to join me, and he just made me feel like part of their family for a week in a place I had never been. And again, the strength that Nick Nurse has to coach through the passing of Steve Nurse, may he rest in peace. I think if you're looking for some Sixers content that is a little more unique, you could search for that. There's an article and a podcast too. I had forgotten kind of that there's 15 minutes of the podcast where I interviewed Steve Nurse. So you can hear from him about Nick and their upbringing and everything. So I know that could seem like a somber note to end on, but I think it can also be just insightful as we move along in the playoffs to show the human side of these people, the coach and the players, and give them some added support heading into these next couple games.
That's fantastic. Absolutely. That's great reporting.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. But it's going to be an exciting weekend in Philly. Obviously, the other team's playing and all. So let's start one game at a time. That's what they started to say around this time last round. They started saying Embiid and others, one game at a time. Sure enough, they were able to rattle off the last three of that series after going down 3-1. So take it one game at a time and see what happens.
Absolutely. Well, Matt, seriously, we appreciate you. I know we haven't exactly talked in a while, but I just want to say thank you a few years ago for taking my call, again, offering me personally some words of advice, and the fact that we've been able to stay connected. It's just been awesome. So want to thank you for coming on, and let's go Sixers.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for having me. You know your stuff like crazy. It was great to be a guest. Really enjoyed the conversation. Professional show here. And yeah, I appreciate your passion for the team. Appreciate you guys reaching out, and your coverage is really good. So just, as I said, just kind of keep doing what you're doing and being present. And it doesn't just apply to athletes. It can apply to media members too. And good things will continue to happen. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. I appreciate that, Matt. Have a good one, dude.
See ya. Bye.
Go Sixers. All right. That was Matt Murphy. And yeah, I think that is a great way to end things today. We've got a little bit of an Apex. It's called Apex Adder Sinus. So Adam's going to be a little busy later on today, I hear from a little birdie tells me that. But you know probably who that birdie is. But that's gonna wrap things up for the Philly Sports Pulse. For cool guests like that, please go like, comment, and subscribe, because I'm telling you what, folks, I have some more. You know how my brain's always working. I'm always trying to make those connections, trying to bring the best content I can for you guys. So stay tuned as the Eagles spring training camp moves on. Might bring in a guest or two here or there. The Phillies, they've got their season rolling around. I fortunately know some people there, so we'll see how things go. Arguably the best show on the network, but you didn't hear that from me. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the 302 Birds Philly Sports Bowl show. I'm Jess. That's Adam. Appreciate y'all for watching. Let's go Flyers and let's go Sixers.
Tailgating out here early in the morning, heart of South Philly. Let's go see what the people have got to say. I'm ready to roll if they need me.
Now listen here, Dutch. Mets and the Cowboys, they suck.
1, 2, 3, go Birds! Go Birds! What we got? 3-2 Birds, United States. Go Birds! Oh my gosh, Chad.
Your favorite Chicagoan. Go Phils.
As always, God bless. Go Birds.
Get your water ice and soft pretzels ready because you are now tuned into a 302 Birds podcast experience. Proudly presented by TickPick, Nick's Pizza, El Diablo Burritos, and Klondike Kate's on the heart of Main Street. Let's take it to the show.